Jim, you ready?
Okay, I got the hat.
Yeah.
Jim, you ready?
Yep.
Jay?
And you know, then they,
Good, good, good. Taneytown Planning Commission, please come to order. Would you stand for the pledge of flag, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. At least it's nice and cool. Where we're at, right. Let the records reflect the members that's present. Commission members should have received the minutes for June 27th. Draft minutes for June the 27th, 2016. Is there any correction or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move we accept them.
So, second?
second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Items on the agenda this evening. The first thing is Meads Crossing. Presentation of the proposed dwelling renderings. Jim, would you like to start us off? And then we can go right into this.
Not really a whole lot to say on it. I haven't seen them yet either, so we're all gonna get the view for the first time. But this is what Meads has worked with the builder on for the product to be out at the project. And as you know, through Community Village, we have a little more control over what things look like in addition to just setbacks and things like that from normal subdivisions. So that's why you're seeing the renderings. That you have the opportunity to comment and make a decision on those. So I know you're seeing them for the first time tonight, so we'll probably want to digest it a little bit. But I'll turn it over to the guys from Meads and let them do their thing.
Good evening. I'm Steve Smith, as I think you all know. And with us tonight are the usual cast of characters, Ed Gold and
Talk in that thing there.
I'm sorry, and Sean Davis. And then the new guy at the table is John McConnell with NVR. We're under contract with NVR and looking forward to breaking ground. From a status standpoint, the engineer has been working hard on making the revisions to the plan as per the revised plan that you all approved a few months ago. Our goal is to have a submittal to CDM, the town's engineer, by the end of this month, and I think there's a good likelihood that that will happen. There's been some back and forth that Jim and the CDM engineer have had with our engineer, so we're moving forward hard with those revisions. As far as the architecture, I'm going to ask that John make a presentation, and then if any of the team has any additional comments, and we of course want to hear yours.
All right, thank you. Like you said, I'm John McConnell. I'm with NVR, the contract builder for the community. Sean, are you going to take care of the slides for me? Okay, otherwise I'd be walking back and forth. So the product that we're presenting to you this evening is a product that NVR has recently designed, and the goal with the product is to cater to a certain market segment that we think as a company is being underserved, not only nationally but on a local level. It's primarily buyers that are first-time home buyers. They're in the 25 to 44-year-old range. Some of them are recent college grads. Some of them are currently in rentals or in older homes in resales. And within a certain income range that includes school teachers and firefighters and like I said, recent college grads. So far in the other communities that we've launched this product throughout the company, in Virginia, in parts of the Midwest. This will be our, one of our first communities in Maryland. We have a community opening shortly in West Virginia. It's been very successful, very well received, and has sold very well. It's a segment of the market that is otherwise either going into apartments or they're looking at very old resale that comes with, its own challenges. It's got a lot, they have a lot of service, they don't have warranties that we'll have. And so that's the market segment that we're catering to. This is just a small snapshot of the product that we intend to build here. We will have 5, and this is the single family line. We'll have 5 different models that we will offer. They'll range from 3 to 5 bedrooms, range from 2 to 3 baths. And as you can see from the picture here, we've tried to incorporate some cottage type, craftsman type elevations between the gable pediments and the upgrade garage doors. We're putting porches on a fair number of the homes. And we've provided you with both, a rendering of a streetscape of, 4 or 5 homes, and then a few pictures of communities that have already been built. If you look at the one on the left versus the one on the right starts to incorporate some of those craftsman elements that I just spoke of, and that's our intention here, is that we would use that type of architecture.
What are those exteriors?
You mind going back? So the exteriors there are siding. There's a variety of siding materials. Traditional siding that you're used to seeing. You also have some board and batten materials. When you get the paper copies of these, it's a little bit easier to distinguish the varying materials. It's kind of hard looking up on the wall, but there are some, some shake designs as well as a board and batten to provide some architectural relief on the face of the home.
You didn't mention brick. Any brick
This does not have a masonry material on it.
on any of them?
Not currently, no.
Any exposed wood?
No, it would be, materials that are kind of low maintenance. It's painted, but it's like AZEK type material that's low maintenance. All the trim boards that you see vertically and horizontally and around windows, that's like a kind of like an AZEK board type material.
What windows you putting in those houses?
I'm sorry?
What windows are you using in those houses?
We use Therma-Tru windows. What we see here is kind of a 2/2 grill design, but they are vinyl windows.
What company is it?
Therma-Tru.
Oh,
So in order to provide variety on the streetscapes within the community, we want to offer a fair number of color schemes. Again, I think being up on the wall and the lighting in here, you're not able to see the variety that exists. It is kind of muted, but I think when you get a paper copy, you'll be able to see that there are some different earth tones and some blue colors, and then we've used different trim from tan to brown to white. And the intention would be, as we're building in the community, that we would pay very close attention to avoid any repeats across the street, side by side. We really want to create a nice streetscape throughout the community. That's typical practice for our company to do that. With this product, we have to pay very close attention to make sure that we don't have those type of conditions where you end up with either the same house type or the same color scheme next door or across the street. We wanted to provide a few of our interior photos. I know you're probably most concerned with the exterior architecture, but as you can see, typical interior of a new home, but want to point out that, for somebody that is looking at a home that's, 25, 30 years old, or an apartment, this is a much more desirable option. New cabinetry, new appliances, new countertops, and the finishes are going to be much different than what they're going to find on the open market at this point. So the second product line that you're all aware of is the townhomes. What we tried to do is duplicate that similar craftsman style. You've got the gable pediments, you've got the carriage doors, and then you've got the varying siding material where you have some shake material in that center unit, and on the end units on the upper floor you've got a board and batten type style. And again, it's color schemes are going to be very important here. If you want to flip to the next page. Once again, we've got 8 different color schemes that we can vary throughout the community. So even though there are quite a few townhome buildings within the community, there will be no 2 townhome buildings that will look the same. We'll be able to vary, the elevations within the building. We'll be able to vary the color schemes, and because of that, I think you'll provide some nice streetscape. One thing we haven't presented here, but that we're very cognizant about, is with this product, the landscaping that goes in up front with not only the townhomes but the single families. We do intend to, have a significant package for both street trees, and some of that is on his site plan, but then also foundation plantings on the front of the home, to give you that feel that, a lot of these communities you go in and the foundation plantings right when you move in, they're kind of sparse and it looks new and it looks like it needs a couple years to grow. In this situation, we're going to try and make it as robust as possible, so it looks like a community that's been there for a couple years.
Have him back that up to the second from the last. Just back that up. I think it's the second one back. Yeah, why do those doors stick out like sore thumbs to me?
Which doors are you talking about? The garage doors?
Because they're white.
Yeah.
My garage door doesn't look like that.
Because you keep running into it.
Well,
It looks
listen,
it more looks like a solid door than, that's all broken up.
Mr. Naylor, we're here for feedback. If the group thinks that, a different color variety would be better for this situation, for those garage doors, maybe, a tan or an off-white, certainly we're open for discussion and for recommendations.
For instance, my door is a 4-panel door, but when it's closed, it looks like a 1-panel door.
Okay. Yeah, this is a carriage door style. As a company, we install a variety of garage doors. We felt that this was most appropriate for the architecture that's here, but again, we've got options that are available if you think that something would be more appropriate.
So on my first impression, I'm not sure what other word to use except for maybe disappointment, in that we're focusing a lot on color as opposed to texture.
Okay.
And the plans or the drawings that we had originally, some nice brick, nice stone facades, things like that. When you look at something like this, I see 5 years, that's going to be another Grand Drive or Carnival Drive, which is not looked upon well in the city. And it's because it looks almost identical, except you threw a garage on there too. But I really think we need something to make them a little more upscale. So I'm not getting that impression.
I understand what you're saying. I think the lighting, the setting in here is not helping. There is relief, architectural relief with the different siding materials, with the shake material, with the board and batten material. That it's not just one full unit of the same, or full building of the same type of siding. But I agree with you. You do want to provide some architectural relief so it doesn't look that way.
Right.
Well, the whole front, I
Our-
mean, down
our
around the
preference
entrance.
would be to avoid the masonry material, but again, we're here to discuss it.
Right.
Well, between the entrance and the garage door, it just looks like a plain building. Something you'd find on a military base. So,
Promise a lot
Would,
more than this one.
let me ask you this, would treatment of the garage surrounds, the front door surrounds, and
well, it's so plain. I mean,
Right.
the front, just looking at the front entrance, and then right next to it, a garage door. I mean, it's just,
so if we were to somehow enhance this and around that,
maybe, and with some type of separation, either with some type of little awning roof or something like that. I mean, it's just plain.
so if you go back to the single family. So if we could incorporate some sort of covered roof, is that what you think?
Well, that does dress it up a little bit, yes. And it looks like you got a little bit setback from the entrance to the garage. It's not on the same plane.
Some of those, yeah.
And that would, and, you know, that would break it up a little bit. Right now, you're looking at a straight face.
You know, if you go back to the townhomes, what you maybe can't see here as well is that there is the separation between units.
I see it about 2 feet in
That
it, yeah.
separation within the same building.
Back that up again.
From this building to that building, you've got about 2 feet in between.
Back that up once now.
Excuse me?
Yeah, look at the garage door on that left-hand, lower left door. Big difference.
There's, I don't know.
There
if you
ain't
can
2
see,
feet
there's a
between
jog
them.
here,
Yeah, okay.
There's a jog there, there's a jog, these are not flat. Okay, but I agree that if we had the detail over the doors, that would break it up more, but they are not flat.
What, do you know what the height
You can see it in the
is
last
on that?
picture, they're not flat.
Yeah,
Look at
well,
the roof line. Look at
where the jog
Way
is.
back to the last
Oh,
picture.
it's 2 feet.
I'm thinking about
You can see
the
it.
See the roof
maintenance
line?
of that side there, soffit-like. On the side of the house. Yeah, right,
Who maintains that side?
okay.
Right.
Well, these are all fee simple ownership, so it's that particular unit owner that is set for.
Either-
The homeowners association is going to have an architectural review panel that's going to be involved in, the once a year walk through the community saying, hey, listen, you need to power wash this, which is what I used to do when I was on my HOA board in my town. You need to wash this, you need to trim up that plant, that kind of stuff, so.
To me, this really looks like the rear of the house instead of the front.
So I think what one of the things we're here for is to present this and to get your thoughts on how can you improve it.
I mean, some bricks and masonry, something, it,
It needs texture, and not setback, but texture. It's really, I mean, we look at the original townhouse designs, this is something you want to drive up to. When I go down to Frederick and see all those, I guess they're more condominiums, but more townhouse style, this is what you're seeing. And this is a step back in time, in my opinion. I mean, I thought we got past the, more or less, I know they're not cookie cutter, but they're looking cookie cutter townhouse.
No, they're cookie cutter.
They really are.
What's the pitch on the roof?
That is a
10, 12? 6, 12?
I was a little surprised when you started off and talked about quality right away, a lesser quality going back 25, 30 years ago, and the interiors and the things of that nature.
We're just looking for a certain price point.
Yeah.
The quality is still the same as any other house that NVR builds.
What is the price? What is the price here, roughly?
We will
260.
probably price townhomes in the low twos and singles to the mid to high twos, probably some in the 300s.
What square footage are we aiming for on these houses?
The townhomes are, base square footage, you're a little 1,300, and you've got conditioned space that you could finish up to 1,600. The single family obviously are gonna be smaller. They range base square, there's a range product that's, just under 13 closer to about 2,800 square feet.
Do you build after you,
Continue.
do you build after you have a sale, or do you build houses and hope to sell them?
Depends on the product. Typically, single-family detached, we're building after the sale. But townhome is a little different process, because if you have two
Yeah,
buyers,
I understand.
you want to get the building started because they want a home, and so you'll start that and probably sell the other ones after.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments?
No, I don't think you want mine.
Any comments from the floor on anything?
Well, I have one more comment, if I could. If I were to go back through my notes, I feel like there were different numbers when we originally started talking about this again. Significantly different numbers. And I feel like everything's shrinking down in size, and it's becoming less of a attractive product at this point. Looking at the designs and the smaller square footage, and now the price is dropping down, which really makes me wonder. I mean, we just had, what was it over there, Creekside, sold out without a problem, and it was higher than its price point. How's that?
It did sell out over a few years, but the price point's very similar.
I feel like it was a little higher, but that's, yeah.
So, and let me just say, one thing that John is very conservative with what he's told you all. In two different ways. One is on the minimum square footage. Typically, these things are finished out and the conditioned space is all used. So when you look at that, it's very much in line with what we've always presented. The other thing is, when you talk about a starting price, tell me, builders don't sell.
Right.
That's a tease.
I understand.
How many people actually pay that price? I would argue it's a very small percentage.
Right.
The bottom line to it is you always have a price.
How many townhouses are involved here? I know what it used to be. We had 135 before. Now you're up to 150 townhouses?
What was
Why
160?
so many townhouses out there in that area? I know what townhouses develop into. I've seen them all over this town. We don't have one nice one left.
Well, I think, as we've talked about before and often, is those are the townhouse of today is very different from the townhouse of the 70s. And it's a different product. It's presented very different. We don't have large surface parking, and the architecture itself. I think the architecture has evolved quite a bit from.
I'm proud, besides John, I'm probably the most experienced in doing this. Okay? And right now I have 7 large communities. Okay? Every single one of the communities has townhomes. Every single one of them. Okay? No community do I have that has less than a third. Multiple of my large ones, okay, are all townhomes, but of different flavors. Because you have 20, 22s, 24s, and 28s. All right, just that's measured by width, and they live differently. But in today's communities, you're trying not to build something that's all one thing, okay? Because then the life cycle of that, just shoots one time around, all right? By having, basically, the way we see it is 2 widths of singles, 1 width of townhomes. In our view, you have 3 product lines, okay? And what you end up doing is you have a much larger sphere of buyers, and the turnover goes townhome to smaller single to larger single, okay? And the community really never stagnates. Now, I'm in a 73 lot community that's all single families, okay? We just went through about a 10-year period, there wasn't a child in there, okay? We're one of those communities that's fortunate enough that now there's kids moving back in. But in the larger communities that we're seeing today, you're trying to build more of a circle of life type of thing where you have product for everyone.
And that's not just for the initial sale. That's what, and that's what keeps Meads Crossing from becoming like what you have with your existing towns, where that is a community that is just townhouses. If it had an HOA, it was just a townhouse HOA. This, an HOA that is everybody in the community. And there's a whole different motivation and a whole different enforcement process then because of that.
And here's the other thing, Brad. I talk in ASPs, okay, average selling price. Okay? John was talking about starting prices.
Right, I
okay?
understand.
I always talk about average square footage, okay? Because that's usually what I'm paying my fees on, okay? John's talking about his base square footage, okay? So, and the numbers that I've given in the past have all been ASPs, have all been average based on what my experience is, okay? So, if you kind of look at it, most people finish their houses off because the cost of finishing it when you buy your house is much less for two reasons. One is, when we're in there with the framers or the drywallers, we can get your basement done just like that at a third of the price of your rest of your house because they're already there. All we're really paying for is the material. The other thing is, and we laugh when I say it this way, but it's all caught up in your mortgage. So you know what? I can only spend $250,000. I can't spend $300,000 on my house. But at the end of the day, if you look at what the extra $50,000 will cost me per month, okay, I'll never get the house that I want. That's our salespeople's job.
Right.
To get the people, to move it up. So I think what I heard, if I can, one is we need some door treatments, right? Yes. Okay. So we need to come back to you all with some door treatments that help these elevations. The other thing is there's various ways of getting what I'm going to call masonry, but let's call it different than clapboard or siding or other 5-pine to dress it up and to give it a little, your words, texture. So it gives it, again, my words, a little bit more character. So if we can come back to you all with that, any other, you want us to look at different garage doors?
How old are these areas that you said you had 7?
Yeah,
How old are they?
Active today, George.
Pardon?
7 are active today, but I can take you back to communities I've been building for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I knew of an 18 unit townhouse in this town.
18 foot wide?
No, they were 18 homes were built as townhouses. Well, I know, but there's 3 of 6. They're built in multiples of 6. When they were sold, they were all owned. Slowly, people moved out and they became rentals. Of those 18 now, 3 of them are for sale. 2 of them have been one of them's been sitting there for about 2.5 years, empty, held by a bank. Another one just went on the market about a year ago. That's the history of townhouses in this town.
Well, I'll give you this much. What I found today is that the townhomes, there's a few features that are different in the townhomes. I call those townhomes, and I don't know how to do it without being a bit pejorative about it, but those are 2-story pop-ups, okay? And I built them robustly early in my career, okay? I can tell you the names of them. They were Jefferson Braxtons, okay? They were 20 wide, they were 2018. We built them forever, okay? The townhomes today are very different. They're all 3 stories. They all have to have garages. Nobody will buy them without a garage, okay? They have features workspace that you just didn't find in the old two-story pop-ups, okay? So what the old two-story pop-ups really were 1,120 square feet, okay? Which is really what we do in apartments today, okay? These units, you know, typically are 20 foot wide, typically 36 feet deep, okay? They're 3 stories high, so do the quick math. You know, you got about, 1,200 square foot per floor. You know, you're a little high there. But you're basically over 2,000 square feet, all right? Not including the garage, okay, you're not supposed to include the garage. These are modernized kitchens, you know, they're open floor plans. The biggest problem we had with Jefferson Braxton, I mean, based on the fact that they were just apartments, okay, is that you had 2 small rooms upstairs which you couldn't get a bed in, okay? Now what you're doing is you're doing a front bedroom, back bedroom, you do a bedroom on the first floor, so that's how you get your 3 bedrooms. There's a lot more to it. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I don't have rentals in my communities that are 2 decades old, but I'll take you back to some of my communities, which is the crossover. About 15, 16 years ago was when we crossed out of the 2-story pop-ups. They're dead now. I built 0. Not 1. Built 750 homes last year. Did not build one 2-story pop-up. I haven't built a 2-story pop-up in 10 years. Okay? So the market is radically different. Okay? The problem is, okay, or the challenge that you have today is, and you know, this is way offline, but the problem is that you can't get people qualified. Okay? So what happens is, in today's world, townhouse is not just, you know, an alternative. It's the only thing, okay, for these first-time home buyers, okay? And it's what, you know, that's why we're building them more as family units.
I don't have much good for HOAs either.
Sometimes that's.
Yeah, they don't seem to survive in this city either.
No.
They fold up and go away.
All right, so do we have any other comments?
Just have one thing, is this the clustered area where all these townhomes are gonna be built?
Yes, sir.
When you first came in, there behind the railroad tracks, we was gonna build these townhouses. Not as many, but we was gonna build them. We were really gonna build them with nice brick and all, and we were gonna make it a brick wall at the railroad tracks so it wouldn't look bad. It would be beautiful from the road. Do you remember that?
I do now, as you mentioned,
I
yeah.
don't think we ever.
And it seems like all of that's went away, and how did all that go away in the last 8 or 9 years? I mean, it all went away.
Really, what's happened in the last 8 or 9 years? It's of notable national and international.
Complete and utter collapse of our market.
So you're basically talking about a first-time buyer now. And that's an area I don't care a lot about either.
You don't want young people in the city?
No, I didn't say that.
But that is by definition.
Well, I know what happens to first-time buyer houses.
But George, we've always talked about first-time home buyers. The townhomes were always first-time home buyers.
Not a thing wrong with
Never
first
not.
Right.
Never not.
Yeah.
Okay. And look, here's
All right.
Jim, here's what I'll tell you.
The rest of our buyers.
All right.
We've been coming now for a long time, okay? Almost 10 years now, all right? We actually have somebody that wants to build it. We've sat here, we've presented what they want to do. I've asked for input, okay? On what we can make accommodations to get it, you know, closer to what you want. But we are ready to break ground. We have our bonding companies in place. We have our loan in place, you know, to get this into the ground. You know, and I think, Henry, you know, and I know it happened at the council, and we want to get the project going, not at any cost, okay? But I need your input on what we can do to fix these elevations, okay? Bring them back to you for your approval, because I'd like to be in the ground this fall.
Well, as soon as you can bring stuff back, we can put you on the agenda.
I'd like to go just a little bit further than the townhouses. I think we're dwelling on the townhouses, which is a lot to dwell on. But if you look at the old pictures, we had some porches on. Are we gonna have something different somewhere where people can buy a nice, classy-looking home with a porch on the front, or anything like we had in the old? This is just small porches, and, you know, it's just, I don't know. I guess I'm looking for too much.
Well, you're increasing townhouses from 135 to over 150. Now, that's a lot of townhouses out there in a small area.
Well, that's not the problem.
Oh, I thought you said it was 150.
Steve's wrong.
Oh, okay,
Second time today.
okay,
Increase it up to 135,
okay,
not from 135 to 100.
okay.
354, 135 are towns. So the vast majority of homes in the community are still single-family detached homes. And, you know, I understand the apprehension regarding the homeowners association, but at 350 homes, that is a completely different animal than 20, 60, 80. I mean, I can tell you that from the overall maintenance standpoint, from the park standpoint, and you look at the amount of open space in this community that the residents are going to demand be maintained properly. They're going to pay their dues, they're going to demand that it be maintained properly. This HOA, and I'm sure you're seeing this in your more recent communities, are much more successful than your single townhome or single family home. Smaller numbers of units, don't have common area that they're maintaining. Basically, they're just saying, hey, we just want you to take the roads. This is a completely different environment.
Again, look at it, 362, you know, the 230 plus singles, 130-ish towns. So it's a 1/3 that I was talking about.
Well, we would have stayed on the original site that we originally agreed on back in the beginning or talked about, you'd have houses out there now.
No, we wouldn't.
Well, you should have been.
But we didn't have.
I mean, unfortunately, we spent
Because, you know, we spent a lot of time talking about parking and the swimming pool and all the amenities that went with it. And now seems like the whole development is being downsized. And that's not what we want to see.
And nobody does. I mean, at the end of the day, probably the right thing to say is the whole community is being right-sized. If that community would have started in 2008, it would have been probably bankrupt, and you would have been dealing with a completely different situation out there. It's actually probably a good thing to say, okay, you know what, this is real, this is marketable, we have a buyer who's willing to purchase all of the units, but, you know, and that's an amazing thing, versus somebody who bought in and then said, okay, I'm done, I'm bankrupt, and I'm out, and then you got half the roads in, none of the community space in, and you're done.
Well, it's gonna wind up that way
It's a
anyway.
right size. And I know, and our goal is to say, what can we do to make this product the best we can make this product?
All right.
And I think.
So I think just moving forward,
And trust in the fact that as a builder, we're listening to the market and what the market wants. And if we sell out here and the market wants something more, you better believe we're gonna sell something more. I can guarantee it.
And Ryan's status, you know, your building status in the state of Maryland, number one.
We build about 40%
Yeah, I was gonna say third.
of the homes in Maryland and Virginia. We've been here quite some time, and we will build something that we're proud of, and we're proud to say is ours 20 years down the road.
well, that's what I want you to remember. We're going to be here after you're going.
The reality is you're a homeowner, you're always here.
So, all right.
All right.
So I guess the gist of the whole thing is you're going to come back for some other renderings with some dress up to the fronts. If you can work in some masonry work or something in that line, something more upscale across the board.
When are we going to see a new plan of where it's gonna be and all that sort of thing?
It's
That's the plan you approved a couple months ago, George.
I know.
That's not
Not gonna change?
No,
I think a couple of months ago, what we did was a concept on the changes. Because originally, we didn't have all those townhouses in. So it was, what we agreed on was a concept.
And that's what we're preparing for.
they gave us
Okay.
Final engineering.
Oh, okay.
should be similar, I think.
George wasn't here tonight, that they gave us them two little plans.
Oh, okay.
I'm just trying to remember if that's.
And this is the final engineering plan that we can send you and we can include it.
I got it here somewhere.
But you'll see that it mimics that concept plan that you get through.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
it
We
is.
have those.
That's, you know what, that was me, a land planners, okay? This is an engineer's. So this has all been comped.
All right, I like this one better.
It's all been graded, it's all,
Okay.
that is fully engineered. Of course,
Right.
I've been doing this long enough that, the reason why that reflects that is.
Okay. And I still think we have some concerns about the parking. I don't want to drag this on, but,
Well, we haven't seen any plans yet.
well, other than what you talked about the last time we was here and we talked about the concept, I mean, it's nice to have the parking somewhere close to your buildings without setting parking lots up. I mean, somebody looks out of the window, they don't want to see a parking lot, and especially if it's designed to be a green area, and then once we come up short with parking lots,
Now I'm
So-
getting cold.
We understand that comment, and we actually addressed it, if we can share a slide with you, if you'd like to see it, but we do have a plan to the screen.
all right, maybe we can see that the next month.
Next month.
That's fine.
Next month is great.
Okay.
What type of shingles are you gonna use? Is it a texture shingle or a flat shingle?
It is I believe it's a textured single. I know, well, the board and bath is not really textured, but certainly the shade style is. Let me get back to it.
What is the warranty on those?
I'll give you, I can bring you.
Tell George we want to move on.
On the exact materials that would be.
Yeah. Let us know what the warranty is on those roofs.
All right,
All right, thank you.
thanks.
Now I'm talking about the roofing shingles. The roofing shingles.
Typically use a Tamco, architectural shingle, and I think it's 30 years warranty on it.
See, I think that's one way of dressing up the outside of a plain house, with a texture shingle,
Yeah,
It does help.
the AZAC boards you're talking about,
it makes a world of difference.
window and door trim,
Let me,
$500 you get out of mine.
what's that?
For $500, you can dress the house
Yeah,
up in there.
there's, with both siding and shingles, there's ways to, inexpensively.
Just pull the plug.
Improve the facade.
Mess up the bulb. Let the fan cool it down, yeah. All right, thanks again, folks.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is cannabis, MD, request for preliminary and possible final site plan approval. Is there, Jim, you want to start us on that?
Well, not a whole lot, the plan's up there on the board. It essentially looks the same as it did the last time you saw it. A bunch of notes have been updated, we clarified the warning usage that that's been estimated, at least to start out with. I did request additional copies for everybody to get one, because really the plan itself looks the same as it was when you got it a couple months ago. Really, it's a matter of working through some minutia of plan notes and things like that, but the approval letters are in, and they've satisfied all the comments from the few reviewers that were involved this time. So it's a very limited review, landscape, forestation, grading, environmental inspections, development review, myself, CDM, and soil conservation district. So very limited review because they're not proposing to do much on the outside of the building. And with that, I'll turn things over to Josh, the engineer.
Thanks.
Okay, just real quick, where are you at with the permitting and licensing? Just so we have something to start thinking about here from the state and whoever
State
else.
has yet to give any decisions. I think they're a week or 2 weeks, couple weeks. Yeah, so we'll know soon.
August 10th, they're awarding the licenses.
Okay,
Now, are you asking about where we are with Carroll County permit?
yes,
Yeah.
both, but August the 10th was, you said, would state, right?
August, give or take a few days, August 10th is the date the state will be awarding the licenses.
As for the building permits, we did you want to have another question?
No, that was,
Yeah.
go ahead, right on with the
We
county.
submitted our plans for permit to Carroll County 3 weeks ago. We've gotten back several comments from several departments. Actually, the comments are fairly boilerplate, very easy to address. So, this is one of the holdups and we're obviously going to wait and see if they get their license before we, follow through with the building permit, and how things end up here obviously affects the building permit. But, drawings have been submitted. We're working through that process. I anticipate we could have it as early as 2 weeks, or, whenever he finds out is the plan. We should be able to get a building permit that day or very shortly after.
Okay,
What's that date again?
August the 10th. Okay, all right, then, I'm sorry, but go ahead and, unless that was your,
No, that's
That
what
was your
as I
spill.
was going to say. Yep, the building permit. Yep.
all right. So, does anybody have any comments or questions or anything from the city staff?
Just for making a decision tonight, certainly, to be contingent upon the board of the license. from the
Light
state
permit,
is
right.
gonna be, I think, reasonable.
Well, we can get approval on preliminary, and then we can go from there. And then do the contingency on the final, based on the state. So at this point,
I'm confused. Are you doing preliminary and final tonight?
it depends if the if we don't have any issues, then I see no reason why not. Agreed? Okay. So at this point, I will entertain a motion for preliminary approval.
So move.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, now we're open for discussion. Anybody have any additional comments? Scott, you're quiet. I didn't see you quoted anywhere here in the newspaper, so I guess that's a good thing, right? All right.
If I could ask a question of Jim Wyprick, are there any changes to this from the last plan we physically saw?
Just in the different boxes, the notes have been updated.
Okay.
With regard to water and sewer usage, there were some corrections on, the last plan had reference to, a septic that is not there, so that's been corrected. Trip generation for the traffic count has been added in a formal tabulation.
If I can add, actually, we've actually decreased some of the what's going on outside. All the garbage, no dumpsters will be outside of the building at all.
I thought that was right from the get-go. There wasn't gonna be none out.
He covered
You know, we didn't really know. I didn't read all the regulations for Maryland State and how they wanted everything disposed. So
But we agree.
My
Just to-
understood, my
That was our understanding.
It was all
Everything was
gonna be-
inside.
that's the way we have it now.
Okay.
And so even for that reserve,
All of it's on the inside.
Yeah, that's right.
And the propane tanks, what has been,
They're in the ground.
I see they're there and they're gonna be in the ground.
They're
and-
supposed to be buried. That's what we
Correct,
agreed on
yeah.
the last time, right?
and there's a drain pipe on the side of the building that, the, I guess, material is not, we're not certain what that is. CDM suggested it be buried, and because we weren't sure, they decided just to replace it with an HDPE pipe. As I said, it's a lot of little detail stuff that it's not gonna look any different on the site. So it's been basically weeks of going back and forth, tweaking little notes and things like that, but substantively, it's what you saw the last time around. It's still.
County doesn't have anything to do with us, do they?
Dehumidifier, the generator, those
County
things on
doesn't
the
have
outside.
anything to do
That's
with
right.
what we do here in this town.
Just a building permit, that's all.
Right, they should
Building
permit.
Building permit inside.
Generators, aren't there generators going outside of it? Is that
Yep.
correct? And where, are they on the front of the building? Am I remembering that?
In the front of the building.
Right there. All right, now while you're standing there on the center, from what I'm looking at top, what was that again?
This is a dehumidifier.
Okay,
water
that's right.
storage dehumidifier.
Okay.
So you really, yeah, it's kind of back where the building juts. in.
Okay, that's what I
Back
thought.
there.
And we've looked at noise and things associated with the generator and the dehumidifier, and all is acceptable?
And
Well-
their distance to any dwelling is so great that.
Right. Okay,
Based on zoning, so.
right.
All right. Any other questions?
Do the dispensaries come under their control?
No,
That's separate.
that's completely separate. All right. So there's a motion on the floor for approval for preliminary site plan. No other questions. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous.
Now, the city can turn that down, right?
Excuse me?
The mayor and city council can undo what we do.
No, not as far as this.
No,
They can.
No.
no.
All right.
Should
Now-
we go on before they get their license on the final?
Pardon me?
We can have it,
Should we go on for the
Yes.
final before they get their license?
just continue.
That's what we're gonna do next.
Contingent on them getting their license.
I'm
yeah.
gonna ask for a motion for final approval, contingent.
Contingent. Sound it
Contingent
out.
on state approval. Now, if somebody wants to put that in the form of a motion,
So moved.
a second?
Second.
Okay, now we'll have the discussion. Hearing none? None from the floor? Okay, all those in favor of the final approval, contingent on the state permits, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Wonderful.
So, I guess, how will you know, Jim, when state, when they, if they get the state permit? Well, what I'm getting at,
They won't be shy about sharing that, I'm
It'd be
sure.
nice, it'd be nice if we could each be emailed before our next month's meeting. More than likely, you will read about the paper.
Yeah, you'll know.
Well,
Yeah,
just like to be able to have an answer before somebody asks a question.
There'll probably be a lynch mob out there that will tell you.
We're gonna put your home address out there, and
They know, they know.
now we're gonna owe you all a fair bit of money for the water usage, so I will be in touch as I have been through every step of the way. Once we get the permit from Carroll County, all the various steps that have to take place before we start construction,
Right.
including the water check. So I'll keep you posted.
All right,
Okay.
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, ordinance and agreement, none. Planning, Jim, your report? Have a report from Jim?
Well, we pretty much touched on the first couple of things that I talked about with.
There it is, thank you.
Needs and the
Paper stuff you got.
house products. And as was mentioned briefly, Brian Luke and I have been working with Jeff Mathai, the engineer at MRA, on some of the specifications that they wanted to make sure were okay before they went further into the construction drawings. And again, basing those drawings on the concept that you guys approved. So we've been back and forth on that. And I think we've nailed down most of the things. Still a few questionable things that we're gonna have to work through with Steve and Ed. But so far, we've been limited to talking about, water and sewer connections and how that's gonna work out with the driveways now and things like that. Touched a little bit on parking and, we're kind of going back and forth on that. And, but I mean, obviously they are working on it, trying to get those construction loans wrapped up. So hopefully we'll, settle on enough of the details there that you'll be seeing the set of construction drawings fairly soon.
Okay.
the whole business, and that's what Mitch is here for tonight, to talk about at least the one that we've got proposed for the park. Starting a clarification meeting on that. So that's about it, unless you want me to go into any more detail about any ongoing projects or.
I have none unless someone else has some. Anybody? Gentlemen?
Can I ask you a question about the development? Or,
Yeah.
Are you guys gonna have any decks on the back of these townhouses?
Decks.
We can determine whether or not we'll offer them as an option or standard. Certainly, the homeowners.
There will be decks.
I think it's just a question of whether it's option or standard.
Maybe I wanna see something to dress up the back of the house too.
Sure.
If you have just a 3-story straight from the ground up, it doesn't look too good. Then again, you got a lot you can talk about with decks too, whether you want treated lumber or you want synthetic product.
Probably, yeah, that would be addressed in the HOA documents, but certainly, as a builder, we would want to have a standard design for it that every homeowner needs to adhere to.
Yeah. Need a deck for the grill. Okay, anything else? Okay. Jay?
Well, the electronic message board sign, I'm here to hear that discussion because there's a lot of talk at the council about resolving this and what kind of ordinance we need and how long it takes it to pass. So my thought was if we come to some resolution tonight, then we can get an ordinance put together and introduced at the next meeting,
Okay.
which is by Friday. So that's really, I don't have anything more. We've been dealing with all sorts of other things that are not core to our mission right now.
Scott?
Nothing from me specifically this month, just a couple of comments, I guess, on what had been discussed prior. Mechanic MD, the use in that building does not bother me at all. I think it's a good adaptive reuse in that building. It's nice to see that being used. The only thing that would ever concern me about it is Annapolis. And my concern is, where do we go from here as the Maryland State Legislature meets year in and year out? And so that, if I'm concerned about anything, it's that type of situation. It's, what types of regulations or deregulation is going to come in the future. I'm not hoping that they're good neighbor.
Okay, building's been empty for what, 5 years?
At least.
Yeah, so. Good.
And as far as the Leeds crossing, it's a tough market, and it's like what Washington says, it's not recovering nearly from what it was prior to the collapse of 2008. So it puts them in a tough spot to present a product with as much detail and as much visual appeal as possible, but yet still be able to meet a certain price. Maybe affordable. So, but yeah, I agree with Mr. LaFavor completely. There are certain things that probably could be done relatively inexpensively to spruce up not only the townhouse product, but perhaps the single family product as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, Jay, we can move right on in then to the electronic message board. As soon as I find all my paperwork.
Here's what I can tell.
Can you hold on a minute? Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
We're holding.
Hold on.
There it is.
Is that the one you just gave us?
That's the newest, yes.
Okay, and then we got the Taneytown. All right, let's move into it.
All right, so last month, when we met here, we threw around a couple ideas for determining where they should be allowed and how that should be determined. And I came up with the table that I handed out to all of you that kind of explains by zone what would be permitted and sizes, heights, et cetera, et cetera. It also talks about operating times, which we talked about before. Something I want to add to this is perhaps creating something for gateway signs specifically for the city. Something to consider.
In order to meet the size of the one that's been ordered, is that it?
Well, something to make that monstrosity allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, something we can apply at each entrance to the city. That was an idea given from another council member.
So was the consensus last week to pursue code amendments to update the different districts with regulations specific to each district for the message board signs?
I think that's the intent.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the approach that I had used with the bulletin board aspect, that is not agreeable. So we want to go back and write district regulations. Is that?
I think that'll be the most appropriate way to.
Because we
do
couldn't
it.
standardize throughout the whole city.
Right.
There's just so many variables, right, thank you. So, back to, you said gateway sign, so we're considering the sign that the town wants to
There
put
are
in?
people that are referring to that as a gateway sign.
Okay, now how does that compare to the future sign that may go in front of Sheets?
Exactly.
So, when you say gateway, I'm confused.
Well, gateway would be all four directions.
Right, but now we talking about, is the one the city proposes to put up, is that gonna be considered a gateway sign to Taneytown? Or is that,
There are some
park
people
type
who are
sign.
referring to that as a gateway sign. I feel like it's a park sign.
well,
And I think if we were to talk about gateway signs, we'd have to talk about where in relation to our boundaries it would have to be considered a gateway sign.
I would feel more relieved if we could not incorporate this gateway sign with the issue that we have before us now. The gateway sign is too much involved to be spending, it's gonna take another 5 years to get that, as long as we spend on this.
Right.
So, I just don't wanna get the two,
And that was the thought of, do we want to simply add that as another line of gateway signs, or we just want to?
Well,
Then you're gonna have regulations just for gateway and regulations for the other zones.
well, the gateway sign, I'm looking at as being part of the city.
Right.
And it'd be a city-wide project.
But it shouldn't be where there is housing.
Right, but if we're
Because
talking
you're
about a
gonna have
gateway,
bigger
I mean, it's a whole different scenario.
well, can
Jay,
we?
you wanna say something?
Yeah, I
Go
want to
ahead.
say
Get me out of
something.
this, will you?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to build some walls around it, maybe. Okay, so this makes me unpopular everywhere. Okay, but let's start with, maybe I can give you some boxes, and you're going to be able to put your things in the boxes. Okay.
Okay.
As much as nobody likes to hear this, the zoning regulations of the town do not apply to the town. Okay? So there's no zone where you'd go in and you build a water tank or a wastewater treatment plant. The city can do that wherever it wants, in whatever zone it wants. Zoning doesn't apply. The sign code is part of the zoning code, so zoning doesn't apply to that. If the city wanted to, it could go and buy the sign and put it on the park and just say that's the way it's going to be. However, it is my understanding that we don't operate that way. Okay, I've been saying that all along, is that we don't really operate that way unless we really can't do it any other way, like a water tank or something like that. Okay, that we operate under the fact that what's good for the goose is good for the gander, so we want to try to comply with what everybody else has to live with. That being said, and you got to remember that, because that's the fallback position here. A gateway sign, and I don't, this is my opinion, what we're talking about here may be the first sign you see as you come into town. Maybe you think it's the gateway, but it is not a typical gateway sign.
Right.
Because the only people that would ever put a gateway sign up is the city. Ever, okay? These message board signs could be put up by all sorts of different people. You might be able to use a message board sign as a gateway sign, but gateway signs aren't message board signs. If that makes any sense, okay?
We all okay?
So, I
with
mean, I'm
that?
kind of with
Yeah.
you on that.
Right.
This might be the first sign you see, but it's not necessarily your gateway.
Right, and the reason that was brought up is that we could allow something of such an enormous size under that, as opposed to everything else that we're restricting.
Right.
But this isn't any larger than what we have there now.
Well, it's larger than the ordinance calls for. That's what's brought everything up.
But it could be
It's
adapted. It
over
could be
9 feet
adapted.
tall. I think it's bigger than what's there.
It's bigger than the
The
ordinance
message board
allows.
portion that's being proposed is the same size as what's down there now. but the proposed sign also has the city of Taneytown kind of header across it.
Right,
So
which is part of the sign.
But
Right.
it doesn't have to be considered, and that's the other option. It does not have to be considered as part of the message board.
If you change the rules or make the rules
Right,
read that way.
but it would still be part of the sign.
Part of the sign, but not as the message part.
And I see no, I don't want to separate them. The sign is the message. City of Taneytown is a message. The electronic portion is a message. That is the sign. So by separating them, that's just trying to skirt around size restrictions.
Yeah, the precedent that went into the draft ordinance from a couple months ago was that our current message board regulations talk about the ratio of the portion of the sign that's a message board versus a fixed message. So we have a ratio of what can be message board versus fixed. So that's why the draft was put together that way. And again, just to make sure that we're heading down the right path for what we put together for the mayor and council, by doing this by district as opposed to expanding the bulletin board use, I just want to make sure the intent is then to make this available for anybody who is eligible to get a sign in these districts will be able to apply for a message board then.
Yeah,
So, okay, so
Right.
any business or, you know, can come and apply for one then.
Well, and that's, yeah, and I think I wrote on here, may only be erected on property of a permitted commercial use. So that's
Okay,
the
I just wanted
intent.
to make sure, because when we had talked about it before, there was kind of some mixed feedback about whether you wanted them in the downtown district or not, if they were appropriate downtown. And that's why I'm asking. I just want to
Right.
make sure that the intent is to basically allow them citywide with, you know, with specific size limitations based on the district and.
Right.
I
That
guess
goes
also
along with
the-
that whole good for the goose, good for the gander thing.
Do what?
That goes along with the whole goose and gander thing. Seems kind of uppity to have one ourselves and then tell everybody else no.
Well,
Well, in the beginning, we figured that all message boards was gonna meet within an ordinance.
right.
When Lance put his up, we were really out there looking it up. We would send people out and measured everything, height, size, and everything. And the city comes along and you just put a monstrosity out there without complying with the ordinance.
And I guess that's where we need to, I mean, and again, you debate it the way you want, but you can either write the ordinance to make the city sign comply, or you can put the city sign issue aside and try to decide what should the signs be for the whole town, and then worry about how the city sign fits into that.
Yeah.
I mean, because what do you want if the city sign wasn't an issue? What would you want? We said we were gonna do this after Wance, then Kenny's, and we said we were gonna do it after Kenny's. Okay, now we're dealing with electronic message board signs. So what do we want to see? And then we can compare.
And that's what this is
That's what
here.
this, right, exactly. This is that. and
This is forgetting the city sign, because based on this, the city
Right.
can't.
So if you agree, like, this is what we want to see with message board signs, then we can compare the city sign to it, and we can decide whether we want to make exceptions. We can decide at the council level where the city's saying, we're just doing it anyway. I mean, there's lots of options, but I wouldn't design our entire plan
Right.
over one sign that's out there.
Right. And that was, I think that was our goal behind this, was ignore the city sign. This is really what we wanted to see happen.
Right.
And we have to be concerned with how close we're gonna be to a house
Right.
with lighting and when you're gonna turn them off and that sort of thing.
And,
Right.
and as I talked to the zoning administrator, you can regulate the illumination, the times they're on,
Right.
because we regulate illuminated signs, indirect illuminated signs. When you go back to your zoning code and you talk about how the BZA grants, they talk about glare and things like that as effects of neighboring property. So we have clearly basis that we can regulate that. What you feel needs to be regulated, I mean, it might be different if you live next to, we've run into the Dunkin' Donuts glare issue. You know, that might be a different issue than if it's in, some of these are commercial uses in a residential zone that could be in the middle of Baltimore Street. right? I mean, you could have a message board sign at the dentist's office with all the houses right around it. How do you deal with that? You know, those are different. So,
And that was, right, and we addressed it there for that.
So what you're saying, and you can take what you was given this evening and work something up from that?
Is it clear enough that you
Right.
can work from that?
wait, this is what you want?
Well,
Because if
maybe
this is
that's
what you
I'm
want
not
and
sure
you're
what
all
everybody
agreeable,
wants.
we can work
If
something
we give
up
you
on it.
something like this tonight, would you be able to work that up and?
Yeah, the way I see this happening in general terms is instead of going through each district, we'll probably create a separate section called electronic message board. We'll probably reference a chart that's like right here, like we do with the use chart or something like that, so that anybody that wants an electronic message board, you go to the chart and you see where it all lays out.
Right.
The only weaknesses of this I see are, I mean, I don't see it as a weakness, but it's very general in the fact that have we gone through to find out where all the exceptions are, where all the problems are? Because this means that if they comply, they get it. There's no more review, right? I mean, that's.
Well,
the
no,
way
I think we still want everything reviewed. All permit requests must be presented to planning commission for approval. So we still plan
still
on them
want it to come
coming to
back to
us.
but we want to make sure we have some type of hooks in there, because I'm bringing my sign to you for review,
Right.
and you tell me you don't like it, and I'm going to say, well, where's your basis for, I comply with everything.
Right.
So we need to have some like soft language, like it needs to comply with the general area of the zone, it needs to comply and be compatible with the neighborhood, those kind of words that allow you some subjectivity to review the sign if it comes to you.
Right.
Well, as the prices come down, there's gonna be more people try to get these signs. The price will come down eventually as more are sold. But, you know, someday the museum may want one, houses all around it.
Right.
And we have that all through town.
All right, I still have a problem with separating the town from our code and ordinance.
But there's nothing we can do about it, unfortunately.
Well, it is,
Right.
I mean, we already know what the sign is, so why not adjust it so the sign fits into the ordinance and go from there? Then we're all on the same page, and we're not separating you and us.
Right.
Or them and those and all that other stuff.
In an ideal
You are
world.
them, but that's okay too, right?
Well, not if you're gonna separate it, then I feel like I'm not,
So,
this commission is not part, because we represent the ordinance and the code. And if you're separating us, then what part are we of the city government?
well, let's parse this out to solve the problem, okay? The first thing is, we know that the city council is never gonna make the zoning code apply to the city. That would not work for lots and lots of other reasons. So that's not gonna happen. The second thing would be, they could make the sign code apply to the city, could make that happen, and then it would have to happen this way. But you'd have to get them to change the law. We could, I don't know that we can make the sign comply to this. I don't know the details of the sign itself, whether the sign would fit in with this. Or whether you could say, for government signs, there's an exception. I don't know what the goal is you're trying to get at. Are we trying to regulate the city's sign and make it
We're
smaller?
trying to be consistent throughout the city, and we've always tried to do that with these signs.
You're never
But-
gonna be able to do that.
I know, but then why not try to start off in the right direction? Instead of already being pulled in two different directions. Scott, help me out here. And if you, make sure it's gonna help me. Otherwise, don't say it.
I'm gonna try to reiterate Jay's point from before, and I'll use a much bigger item than electronic message board. And Carroll County can put a public schools anywhere they want. They can put that public school on an industrial piece of ground, and I can go through the county code and look at the industrial, and, you know, it's not in there specific, actually, it's in there specifically, you know, basically saying that, you know, buildings of a civic nature, public buildings of a civic nature, it's in there. But we can put a school in the industrial zone, or we can put a school in the ag zone, and all things in between. And you can probably do the private schools as well, I can go and check, but, the bottom line is local jurisdictions can have broad leeway a lot of times. It would not be inconsistent with other things that the town can do, such as a sewer treatment plant or something of other of a public and civic nature.
what it is.
So,
So what it tells you is that if the city wanted to tear down the old Sheets building and put a sewer treatment plant in there, they could do it if they wanted to. Imagine that for the city.
well, yeah.
But
Imagine this
they
is
would,
filling up with people when you try to
When they do that, right.
What is Bob Mitchell here for?
I guess he's good.
He,
He's director of Parks and Rec.
yeah, he's
Right,
here to
he's one
fight
want
for
to-
it.
Focus on it.
He's one who wants to get finalization on it so he can approve
the
the
sign.
sign, so he
Right.
can buy a sign. So, and I still don't see why it's so hard to not be in the same direction. I guess,
I guess we need to find out the details on the sign. I can't answer that. You're looking at the wrong
all
guy.
right. Can you come up and speak to the size, where we are with that?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thanks for taking your time out this evening. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
just get to the point.
What do you need to know?
That was the best part of his speech.
Just rolling off of the governorship of the Pines.
What do you folks need to know? I mean, I learned a lot about signs doing this project. There's a lot of different variables that go into size of signs.
Can you change the size of the sign, of your sign?
Can I change the
Can the
size?
size of the sign be changed?
No, not now.
How's come you ordered this size?
Because, and I'm glad you asked that, Mr. Naylor, and here's why. Because the distance from the roadway and also the miles per hour, the speed limit, that all comes into factor. That all factors everything, because it's like our roadway sign is farther off the road where the fire companies would be closer to the road. So the size could be different at that point. So there's a lot of different variables that go in to putting up certain signs in certain locations. I didn't want to move the sign because I think the placement of the sign right now, the one that sits at Memorial Park right now, is perfect. Because if you go down there and look, the first house east of that sign is blocked by trees. That residents can't see that sign.
Trees won't always be there.
Well, that may be true, but here's the way I look about complaints. If you get a complaint about a sign, you address that complaint. But if you never get that complaint, you're worrying about something that's never going to happen anyway.
Is that a double-sided sign?
It's a double-sided sign. The one we have down there now?
I know the one, no, that
This
name.
one.
The new one.
Yes, it'll be a double-sided sign.
Maybe it is. It is. What am I-
But what my point is like I said, there's a lot of different variables, and this is whoever did this is good. I looked at this and it's very good. Now the only problem is
Your sign won't work.
my sign's a tad bit bigger than this, but then the well, I can tell you exactly.
How many square feet? How many square feet bigger, square inches?
4.
4 square feet bigger.
Yep.
And that's just because the name's on top.
No.
That's
You're talking about-
that's just.
The message center portion of the sign is the same size as the sign at Memorial Park right now.
That's
The
not
message
what I'm
center.
saying, though.
All right, the electronic message center portion is 35 square feet.
Is 39 square feet.
60 by
Okay.
84, that's 5 by 7. That's 35 square feet. And then you have the City of Taneytown static message at the top, which is approximately 14 square feet. So you're looking at 49-ish square feet of signage.
39.27.
That's what he's got.
Your drawing's different than ours. though.
Yes.
Your drawing's different than ours,
What do
if
you
that's the
have?
case.
7 foot 3 inches wide,
Yes.
okay? And then the city of Taneytown's 2 feet high,
Is that including any,
right?
Right.
5 foot 5 inches by 7.3. 39.27 square feet sign.
that is different.
Well, you got different than what we have then.
All right.
No, it's the same thing.
Same.
You said five.
It's the
5
same.
foot
It's
3
Okay?
by 7 foot 3.
Okay.
This is saying
well, yeah, but
5 foot
you have
5.
a static portion up here.
Well, but see, we don't have that here.
Yes, we do.
Yes, you
It's just different colors. White or blue.
Yeah.
just different
It's
colors.
Is
just
that gonna
different
light
colors.
up? Is that part?
You
No,
have-
You got that extra
Right,
here,
but that'll
but
stay
we don't
lit
have
all
it
the
here.
time.
No, no,
The city of
or.
Taneytown's lighting up?
Or, I
It's a color difference.
I didn't have the
It's a
order.
design difference. Right, so,
That's what's called a header cabinet.
Gotcha.
Put the word city of Taneytown in your sign. Huh? That's not being funny.
No, no, but this sign changes.
no, I don't, and here's why I don't understand. Because
I got you.
Back.
60 inches by 84 inches is 5 by 7. This portion alone is 35 square feet. This static image up here is approximately 2 feet by 7 foot 3 inches. That's another 14 square feet. Plus 35 square feet is 49 square feet, give or take a couple inches. The entire thing is about 49 square feet.
I'm thinking this, they're talking about this portion.
And they probably are. But this itself is a message, albeit static, it's a part of the sign.
Especially since it lights
So
up.
the entire thing is the sign, it's 49 square feet.
That's not the way I was looking.
The sign is
That's-
all, the sign is all wrong, but I'm
Part of
all
this.
for the sign.
That was, I was looking at that being fixed.
Well, and it is fixed.
Ollie, that sounded profound, say it again.
Yeah, I want to hear that over again, because I didn't quite hear that one.
I actually remember what you just said.
So,
All right. Well, when we came up with this thing, you know, it was never, I guess, it never imagined that we were actually counting all the other static stuff. Because this sign is really is a digital message board, right?
right.
And so we're looking at it from the actual digital message board portion of the thing, replacing what was out there with this. Okay, so then that sign out there with it, you know, does it have a top to that thing too?
It has something on the top, says City of Taneytown on top of
Okay,
it.
so
yes.
that one's wrong.
I'm sure it is.
To begin with,
Yeah.
I'm sure it is, but when,
but never,
the way that we consider it,
So-
and I'm gonna say we, assuming that we all agree, is that that is a part of the sign.
okay.
It's a static part, but it is a part of it. So just saying the electronic part conforms, are we just supposed to ignore what's at the top that then makes it non-conforming?
Well, you know, you can have, I mean, you can put up a sign that doesn't have a lit portion of a sign or something like that, that does a surround on the sign itself. That wouldn't be considered a sign. That would be considered a part of the, I don't know how you put it, the
The
structure.
structure, right, yes. But if it conveys a message, if you had it held up with a big brick on the side, that's not a sign. If you then spelled out Taneytown down that brick, that's now a sign. You're conveying a message on that.
Because it's lit.
Not even because
No,
it's lit,
Because it's got the words.
but because it's conveying a message.
So can we just pass this and give them an exception? It's what we're getting down
Make them
to.
go to the Board of Appeal and get it.
Right. Right.
And they have,
You can waiver
I
the
mean-
$600 bucks.
they have to pay that.
No, like nobody likes like raw government in action, but we go back to my initial premises is that if you like the way message boards work out and this is it or close to it,
Yeah.
and then we go with this. And the city thing falls outside of that, okay? The city council decides we're doing it anyway, which they can, or we'll apply for a BZA variance, which they can. And then they can decide if we don't get the BZA variance, we're going to do it anyway. I mean, but you see that there is a process already. And I guess what's troubling me is we're trying to write an ordinance to accomplish something that doesn't need an ordinance to be accomplished, which is what doesn't really sit well with me, is that we're writing a law that's going to apply everywhere to allow the city to do something they don't need permission to do in the first place.
But the city is just one part. We also got, like I said, we got the fire company and we got the
Right.
school.
And I think
So-
Brad's
and it's
thing
all fall-
addresses this.
Yes. You're the only one,
You're the only one.
because you're the city. Evidently, I'm standing alone.
That's right. We're the only one, all right.
Yeah.
So what do I write up? I mean, I'm looking at it as I understand the city sign dilemma. If you're not going to change this to accommodate the sign that's already been purchased, then I'm writing up this to address the greater good of the city, and it goes through the process, which is a 2-month process. I mean, this is not a quick thing.
Everybody else can wait with them, but you.
Us.
But you know, we already have 2 other signs in town that met a code when they were put up. Why shouldn't we use that?
I mean, you can, and you have, but the argument needs to be made to the city council that they should withhold the use of their government power to put this sign up, if that's the argument.
Am I looking at this right or wrong, that this sign that's already been bought and is in the shed could go in general business?
It could go anywhere they want to put it.
Sign down here.
It's an open space. The city could.
Wherever they
Doesn't
want.
have to follow.
The city can put it in your front yard. They could put it in your bedroom if they wanted to.
I took one down not too long ago.
I don't know if I could go
Right.
Jay, you say about it's a 2-month process. What if city council voted to suspend the rules?
No, it's a state.
It's been-
Okay, we could suspend the rules. However, there's still state notice requirements that have to happen. So we would never get it passed, whatever the next month is coming up.
Okay.
So it would still be the next month, you just wouldn't have an introduction. You'd have notice of a hearing, an introduction and adoption.
What's the hurry on the sign?
There isn't other than the city, so if
There
you
isn't,
eliminate the
right.
city, there's no hurry.
Let me clarify that as well. You know, what the city council did was they took action at the last meeting to purchase a sign we had already contracted for, but to get a delivery date later. So as far as finance is concerned, when you purchase something, it doesn't count until it's delivered.
You get this, we're getting this sign, right?
Yeah, the sign has been ordered.
Okay,
I think we're gonna change parties.
You feel that way too?
okay. So we're getting this sign I mean, that's the way the city fathers and mothers have decided. The sign is being purchased.
That was not a unanimous decision on the city council.
And there's,
But it was the majority.
And that's the important thing.
and you can make recommendations to the city council, and you should, because the only thing they've heard from me is that you can put the sign up, but we all want to play fair and nice. So you should probably recommend that we really want the city to comply with everything, and this is how we intend to make that happen. Realizing they already bought the sign, so they're not going to do that unless you give them an out. I don't,
They're gonna have to make us a whole sign again.
we write laws, we don't write the laws for the
All right,
exception,
to
so.
move forward with this, you can take this based on what everybody, and put it together, and you can't have this ready by Friday. Right?
I mean, the city council, you see how they deal with this, right? I'm gonna submit it, the councilman's gonna say, this is what we're submitting, and they're gonna say, oh, great, we don't wanna deal with sign ordinances, and they put their
Right.
hands up. And then you never get any feedback. And so my thought is that if this needs to be vetted, it needs to be done by you all.
Right.
And I haven't been here for the last meetings because you keep talking about signs, and I don't like that, okay?
Right.
So, I haven't come to those meetings.
I knew that's why you
Right.
weren't coming.
But I don't know if you vetted this or not, so that's my point.
All right.
Well,
We did all except for the little tweaking that he did.
Tweaking.
Right.
tweaking.
Tweaking, right.
Tweaking sounded really
I
bad.
was
Well,
trying to
that's,
figure that one out.
I'm still in that negative.
So this was, okay, the process was, this was emailed out to all the commission members,
Except for one.
except for
That's cool.
one. But there was some feedback given to me. I tweaked it a little bit accordingly.
Not really here.
And that's why I brought tonight, is that version for them to look through. Is there anything, talking to the commission now, is there anything on here that is particularly awful to you that we should change before passing it off to the attorney?
I only had one, and that was the change where we originally said 200 feet, we made it 300 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Is everybody
Is that
okay with
sufficient?
that?
300 feet from a residential use?
A residential use means the house, property line, or the house, or a building, or what? What do you mean there?
Residentially used structure
So you're
on the
saying,
same or neighboring property.
That's a long ways.
It
okay,
is a long ways. I had it 200 originally.
I thought that was fair.
okay.
Do we want to make it 200 again, or? are we
Yeah, I
good?
like the 300, because I did some checking
All
around.
that does is change the time. It doesn't mean you can't have it. It just means you can't have it.
Right, that
on all
lights have
night.
to be off.
It just means you gotta turn it
Right.
off at night.
Okay.
Okay. And then what else was it? I think everything else is pretty much the same. Okay. So are we all good on this? So the consensus is yes?
Questions on?
Holly?
Okay.
Judy?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Jim has questions.
Jim
Hold
wants
on.
a couple more
George?
questions.
Yeah.
George? Good?
No, yeah.
Yeah,
good,
no, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
What is the, what's the reasoning for, I guess, allowing them in R75 and R20, but not R10 and R6? Because I can build a hospital in any of those. So why can I have a message board in R 75 or R 20, but I can't have one for my hospital in R 10 or R 6? I'm just wondering why those two districts are treated differently than the other residential ones.
I think
We talked about the R6, but I can't remember why.
I think it's because they are so predominantly residential.
Isn't it just based on what we already have, not what we could have?
Right.
Right.
Well, but there's, I mean, where's 20? That's,
Right now, we only have one R 20 parcel within the city, and that's the Baptist Church site.
and that's probably why I did it, because of the Baptist Church.
But again, we need to look forward with,
Right.
you know, with these, not with what's on the ground now, but
And I think you're right what you said about the R6. It's all in a residential or small area.
right. I mean, certainly, and I'm not sure if anybody took a look at the
We didn't have a code book, remember?
right, I know, it's online.
It's online. We don't have access here.
But, you know, I guess, just in looking at the chart, I'm just trying to kind of get the reasoning behind, you know, some of the
That was the primary reason was because 6,000 is A, mostly residential, B, it's not on the main thoroughfare of the city. R20 was probably basically around the Baptist church. I know there's a little sliver of something up north of town, but I think that was the primary reason. It's the only thing there. We could take that out completely if we wanted to, but,
It's just, I mean, the
right. I mean,
variety of residential uses allowed in a number of residential zones. Now, they do require a larger site to develop most of those,
Right.
you know, like a school or a hospital or a church or something like that. You know, so they would be, you know, on a larger site, farther away from, you know, a dwelling and things like that, most likely. But I'm just trying to think
Electronic signs shouldn't be.
from an administrative standpoint, to have some consistency, you know, if we're, I guess I just wanna be able to defend, you know, why, you know, for example, R 75, but not R 10, or, you know, because if it's the lot size, well, R 75 is smaller than R 10, but we're allowing it.
well,
But I can have a museum in R 75 or R 10, or, you know, so it just seems like there's kind of a disconnect
well, and
between districts.
it comes to, and maybe because I had ulterior motives of wanting to focus these commercial properties in certain areas.
So this is my house.
This is my answer, because I went home and made this table based on what we had said. The 7,500 has, along the main thoroughfare, I mean, you have a museum, you have commercial businesses in that area, so it makes sense that they would be allowed to have one. Others, in terms of 10,000, the R10, it's developments. Are we gonna have a commercial business with an electronic sign in the middle of a housing development?
No.
So that's my reasoning.
Currently, we don't, but
Right.
again, just looking at it from a planning perspective, there are a couple hundred acres within the city that are zoned R10 that are farms. And we have no idea, you know, what the market might bring, what demand might be 50 years from now.
Right.
Certainly, we'll probably be looking at signs.
I have a feeling in 50 years, this will change 10
And
times.
sign laws has been changing for 50 years,
Right.
because I've seen it.
I think
You put some of that
personally,
soft language in there, like you were saying, we can, when it comes to the commission, unless it's the city, we can do something about it.
Okay, Jim.
I have lots of
You
different
have things
ideas.
that you can cover, that already can cover this in the code?
I think if
If we don't use this, does the code already have something in it?
no.
No, not about message boards.
I was gonna say we're losing anyway, so why waste the time?
Because we got other people that wanna put one
Yeah,
in.
but that could be adjusted any time. We lost to the city. They can do what they want, no matter what you say.
Only the city,
The city can, that's what I'm saying.
right. But we got other people that's not city.
I'm listening, Jim. What can I do for you?
I guess if, you know, from your comment about, you know, the proximity or, you know, location on major thoroughfares.
Right.
It almost sounds like we're talking more like an overlay sort of thing that would be, you know, applicable to Baltimore, York, and Frederick streets, you know, or maybe, you know, I don't know, Genevieve Drive or something, you know, but you can already have them in general business, so that wouldn't really matter. And I think the last time we had much discussion about signs that would have been like in the R75 district and such, there was talk about amending the code so it would apply to, you know, the main roads. But we weren't really directed to look at it as an overlay, but that's really what I think the intent would be we want to allow where high traffic, high volume of traffic is, but not back in a subdivision somewhere. But if you do it strictly by district and you say it's allowed in R75, well, you know, we do have doctor's offices and dentist offices in R75 that aren't on Baltimore Street. You know, we've got the library on Grand Drive, for example, that's R75.
Dr. Linthicum, Dr. Linthicum's office,
Right,
the Banyan.
on Kings Drive,
Mhm.
you know, another doctor's office. So, I guess, I just want to make sure that we're thinking through the implications of, you know, of doing it this way. And if that's the consensus, that's fine. I mean, we'll work to draft something.
What would you do to change it to modify it? I mean, so it fits.
And that's, you know, and I don't know that it would be necessarily fair to say, like, Dr. Gallianitis on Baltimore Street could have one, but Dr. Linthicum on Kings Drive couldn't have one. But, you know, so in that regard, the
Well, and that's why we broke it down by zoning, because
Right.
we have them separated anyway for a reason, so let's continue on that route.
This is the best we had so far, so let's go with it.
You don't want a daycare on these developments that have one, and that's what that's eliminating.
Well, but not really, because I live in a 7500, they could put one in there. And it's not that I want one there, but at the same time, I'm trying to look at fairly across the entire 75 zone.
That comes back to us to make the decision of what goes there and what don't do, right? Right.
Us or BZA?
Well, yeah, that would go.
That's BZA.
Yeah, because they set that up.
Right.
Hey, Jay?
I was just trying to think about this from a different perspective. I mean, unless we're there and we can write this up, but, you know, Bob Mitchell came up with a good saying a minute ago where he talked about we deal with the problems when we find them. Who wants these signs today? I mean, who would be the people that we have heard have a need for these signs?
Well, and there are
Taneytown
three that we know
Elementary,
of.
Taneytown Elementary and the fire company.
Well, and the city, which we'll ignore.
Right. And maybe, so, I mean, I'm trying to get to the point where when we try to design a one-size-fits-all, maybe it's different sizes, but it's one product fits all, and we're thinking about what maybe this doctor wants or that doctor wants, would it be easier for us to come up with a structure that we could add to over time if people want this to happen? You know you have a need for a nonprofit, you have a need for a government entity, which is the school, you have a need for the town, that have a pressing need and have expressed interest. Could you just design it so it applies to them, and then you could expand it as you find you might have other people to have needs? And the only reason I'm saying this stage thing is I thought I remembered when the first one went up at the car dealership that this group was really opposed to it, that we really didn't want these in town. I mean, there was really a we don't want to see these in town type of attitude. And now we're expanding it so that, yeah, the city's having one and we're not happy about that, but you're going to allow these as a right a lot of places. And that's what I guess I feel like I must have missed an episode, because how did you go from this to this? Because I really didn't think you wanted them all along Main Street.
We didn't want another Reisterstown or Owensville area.
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. We didn't want a strip.
Right, but this is going to be a step towards it. It may be a measured step. It may be a restricted step, but it's certainly a step towards that,
Right.
as opposed to no, we don't allow electronic message board signs. And maybe we'll let nonprofit and government entities do it because they're not doing it for profit. They're doing it for a public service, which is where we were when we started, way back. So, I mean, that's just, I'm wondering, we got here, and is this where you want to end up? Or do you want to step back? There's no pressing need if the city's, you know, on the side here and kind of be dealt with differently. Is there a different way to do this?
I think we're coming into electronic signs down the road, but it'll be a slow process. But there's gonna be more of them all the time.
Right.
And again, we need to be prepared for them.
That's right.
Because what we don't know is next month we could have 10 businesses coming to us saying, we want these.
Right.
Hey, the city's putting that one up, they shouldn't have, but they're putting that one up, and now we want them. So we should be prepared.
And I
Unless
guess.
we say no.
Well, that's the argument. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate is I'm going to say the city has a purpose. It's a public interest. The fire company has a purpose. The school has a purpose. You, business person, I know you want to get customers in. I know you want to be successful. But overall, the city doesn't see this type of media as a good thing, so we don't allow it. Just like we regulate other things. You could do that. And I guess that's where I'm saying is that I don't know how you get past the slippery slope when you take steps going down there. You're going to be where George is saying. So you're going to have them everywhere eventually.
Yep.
Is that what you want?
Never did.
And that's why I'm
But
kind of lost.
sometimes you have to knuckle under. We want to attract businesses. Businesses want this. It's the sad truth.
That's the argument you should be having. The hows and stuff, I think we can figure out. If you've decided you want it to happen, then we can make it happen. But there's my 2 cents. No.
I like when Jay didn't come to sign.
I know. Jay liked it too, okay? Jay liked it too. I know.
I'm looking for a motion for adjournment.
Make that
Love
motion.
that idea.
Got one down here.
Make the
You
motion
brought up a
to
good
adjourn.
point there. Yeah, that is a
Let's get
good
the hell
point.
out
We talked about that, sir. We really don't want East Balmer Street, West Balmer Street, York Street, all those, all lit up. Flashing lights and messages and all that stuff. I mean, we've talked about that 15, 20 years ago.
There's a difference between a message sign and a lit sign.
See,
Pardon me?
There's a difference between
Oh,
a
big
message sign
difference.
and a lit sign.
Yes. And that's why this is labeled
This is
electronic
just-
message boards.
This is
Because
just a
it's a-
change that's taking place. Years ago, we had speakers come in to tell us not to put signs up. Do not become like a Reisterstown Road. They were up at the senior center with a representative to talk to the community.
So what's the wishes of the commission? We can back off,
Back off and let the town put it up.
let the town, well, we'll skip the town, I mean, they're gonna do it anyway, but, and then let Jay put something, or Jim put something together where, government agencies or whatever,
Nonprofits.
well, not
That's kinda
nonprofits, because
what
now
we
we're getting
had
into
a couple
churches
months
and all
ago.
this other stuff.
You don't want them to have one?
But see, but how are you gonna have one at the fire department otherwise?
What's wrong with this right here?
I really don't care. I just want to get it something that helps to satisfy the town.
It won't apply to the town either way.
I mean, if you say nonprofit, then you're talking about the churches. You got the Lutheran Church, you got the Church of Christ, you got all those, you got, you know. So
I know it's been a couple months, and I wasn't here last month to hear the discussion, but that's essentially the ordinance that you guys had in your packet.
I got it right here.
Before last, was approaching it through the bulletin board idea, because bulletin boards are allowed for, community organizations and schools and churches and those sort of things. So with the direction I was given, which was essentially to make the city's sign fit the code, or make the code fit the city sign, whichever, tomato, and it also addressed the fire company and the school. So you know, if you do want to let those types of organizations, you know, have that flexibility to do the message boards, because those are the ones that, you know, right now they're going out with the little plastic letters and, you know, hanging them up and closing the glass door, and, you know, that gives them the ability to control it more quickly and you know, remotely. Then we could go back to that approach if you don't want to allow them like citywide for anybody.
I feel if we do that, we're just gonna kick the can down the road and just keep avoiding sign talk altogether. And at some point, we actually have to embrace the fact that the change has to be made. I think if the city's gonna put one up, we're gonna start seeing interest in it. Which means in 6 months, we're gonna have to have this talk again when enough people ask for it. So.
Yes has already got a sign. Yes has already.
Well, is the fire department gonna put one up?
Oh, yeah, we're waiting.
I know the city's not breaking
There
new
you
ground.
go.
The other reality is, if your board does not roll up its sleeves and do this, and make a statement about whichever way you're gonna go, whether it's what Brad is saying about, you can't rely on the council to do that. I mean, you realize that, it's just not going to happen to the detail level. It's gonna go to the council, they're gonna say, great, do it, don't do it, like the last meeting where we were left, we don't know what to do.
Right.
So, you know, I would urge you all to be confident about what you're doing, because that's the confidence that comes to the council and says, we want this, and it happens then.
The council's not gonna spend the time on this.
Right.
And if we don't, no one will, and it's dead.
Well, was that other ordinance, it's just sort of died like that too.
Canopy or something
Yeah.
ordinance, yeah.
What?
All right,
It was the
so-
ordinance with the
Oh,
what was an awning or a canopy or something, I forget that.
That was probably before my time then, because I don't recall that one.
It wasn't that long ago, right before your time.
All right, so we're back to 15 minutes ago.
I guess the question is, you know, do you want these signs citywide or don't you?
Which comes down to, do we want to talk about this again in 6 months, or just finish it now?
But again, I understand the desire, and, you know, whenever you tell somebody, in particular a business, you know, no, we don't allow that, then the city is business unfriendly, you know, whenever, and I tell people, you know, day out what they can and can't do, so I'm used to being unpopular. You know, I could really do without the rocks through the window, but, you know.
And when you say that,
Comes with the territory, but.
right, but when you say that to those people, who do they go to complain after you? They go to the council. What's the council gonna do about this? Nothing.
And some do, okay, but,
They go on Facebook and complain about it.
well, yeah, that's probably more likely.
Right.
But at the same time, our job is to plan and to come up with things like this that we think are in the best interest of the city as a whole. And, you know, whether that's, you know, to loosen regulations, to tighten regulations, I think the important thing is to be clear, and, you know, for somebody to be able to look at the code and understand what they need to do, what they can and can't do, or to, you know, make a phone call to the city to find out and have some certainty with it. I think that's as important as you know, being able to say, well, you might be able to have one of these signs, but you're gonna have to go to the planning commission and talk to them. Oh, and by the way, you're gonna have to tell me, you know, how many feet from the nearest residential dwelling unit it is. So you're gonna have to hire an engineer. And, you know, I mean, is that really gonna satisfy somebody? I don't see it from the number of sign applications I get, you know, tend to be more, you know, the mom and pop, the people who unfortunately, you know, come and go, and they're giving me, you know, hand-drawn site plans and stuff, and I go out and take a look and, you know, give it the best shot we can. But I think this is just making it very complicated, and I don't see it working from an administrative standpoint. You know, and I am actually pretty easygoing on the zoning stuff, that I, you know, accept hand-drawn stuff, and, you know, I'll go out and take a look at the site or something like that, but, you know, some of the stuff that's in here is gonna require a lot more effort.
Does Jim want
And,
this?
you know, some serious measurement, and it's, I don't know, it makes me nervous to think about, you know, how to enforce some of this stuff, like, you know, 8 flashes per second, and, you know, we talked about this, some of this, when we first decided to allow the message boards in the general business district, and, you know, the consensus at that point was that we're gonna allow them, and we're gonna regulate the content of the message, but we weren't gonna regulate the frequency that the message could change or anything like that, because it would be very difficult to enforce. So, you know, I'm just not sure how it's envisioned to really be, you know, administered and enforced with all the detail that's in here. I'm kind of a fan of trying to keep it simple if we can. But again, I guess it comes down to, you know, if you know, what does the planning commission want to see? What do you want to see, you know, Baltimore Street, York and Frederick Street look like in 10 years? You know, if you want to see a potential proliferation of these signs, then this is the way to go. If you don't want to see that, then you limit it.
What would you like to see, Jim?
I'd like to see it limited. I think that I think there's a place for them. I don't think the place for them is in a National Register Historic District like we have. I don't think that's an appropriate place for a message board sign. I have concerns about them being proximate to a dwelling. And you know, we can control to some degree the timing of them. But I don't know that, you know, if I lived, well, where I used to live, I could step out on my front lawn and see the Lance sign, you know, at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. Wasn't really crazy about that, but it didn't really shine in my windows or anything, but,
Yeah,
but again, I think.
I had the sheet signs for
Okay, yeah.
25 years.
Yeah, so, you know, I think there's a place for them, but I don't think they need to be everywhere. You know, I think community character matters. I think a sense of place matters. I think not looking like, you know, Anytown, USA matters. You know, if we want to, you know, see success with our downtown, you know, I think we need to not cave into, you know, everybody that wants to put up a flashing sign in their window. So that's my opinion. I think that they need to be limited, like we talked about back when we really first approached it. And will they get cheaper, and will more people want to use them? Probably so. But again, it's about it needs to be about what we want for our city, as well as what, you know, somebody who wants to open a business, you know, wants for their storefront. And it's not always, you know, just gonna be about, you know, so many square feet. So, again, it's what we want, or it should be what we want.
So going back to the one that you put together originally, the ordinance 26, 2016, is that what you were getting at, is what you want? Did you want to go through that and see what, do you have that in front of you?
I do have a draft of that. And that kind of takes me back to the city sign a little bit, because this was written, you know, with the direction of make the city sign fit it. You know,
Which I think
and
was said to you
without
before we were
reopening
told
the
how
whole
big the city sign was.
debate of whether the city is gonna follow their ordinance or not.
Because if we follow this one here, I mean, you're covering,
The sizes in here are larger than I would like to see.
you're saying 36 square feet. The board shall not exceed 36 square feet. And of course, it doesn't say if it's on one side or both sides. But I imagine, you know,
And that would have been per side.
per side. And it requires wait a minute, in areas without planning approval.
Now, something
We
that
would
I
want-
was not real comfortable with that draft was it did not specify a maximum. And there was some thought put in there that if we did specify the maximum, which would have been the size of the city sign, that's what everybody's gonna ask for.
Right.
So initially, I thought that it might be good to leave it open-ended, but then at the same time, there's risk with that somebody could possibly come in and bully their way to an even bigger sign. So in talking with Henry and the Mayor Pro Tem a few weeks ago, the suggestion was made to go ahead and put a maximum size on it, which was gonna be the maximum size for what's down at the park. Which was rounded up a little bit to 54 square feet per side, because we've got that dimension elsewhere in the sign code. I think that's, it's fine down in the park, because it's, on a big parcel away from anything else. But I don't think that that's the size that, the Methodist Church should have on Middle Street, or that the fire company should have. So I do think it should be smaller than that.
And once again, as I said before, a lot of it goes by the sign. When you talk to the sign company, is what they suggest you put up.
Right, what's the most expensive sign they can sell you?
No, that's not necessarily true, because are you worried about price, or are you worried about it being seen? I know the fire company's probably gonna worry about it being seen like I am at the park.
Oh, when I worry about paying taxpayers' money, I'm worried about the price.
Well, you're worried about it being seen and spending the taxpayers' dollars smartly. I mean, why would I put a sign that's $30,000 or $10,000 less and it still not be seen down there? It makes no sense.
Well,
It makes no sense to me to put something down there that's not going to get utilized.
there's a real science to the sign.
Absolutely.
And I don't deny that.
But, it's no different than somebody that sticks a yard sale sign up that, as you go by, it's like, what was that? So you have to be able to, it has to do with speed in the area. It has to do with, how long does that sign up that you can read? It's a lot more that goes into that than just, windage.
All right, we've heard a lot here this evening. Since we don't have to deal with the town sign, that's gonna do what it's gonna do. We got like 3 different options here: do nothing, or say no. We've got the original ordinance that can be modified, or we got what the commission suggested last month. And why don't we think about this and Jay, can you make next month's meeting? And let's come back with next month. Let's think about this for the next month. We got like,
I know, he's gonna,
we, there's four different options there. There's 4 different options there that we can talk about or think about between now and next month's meeting. And hope we spend the time once we leave here to really put some thought on to it.
Jim, I'd like to see Jim come up with an amended idea again.
Well, like I say,
Let him think about it again, come up with.
he can.
With
We
another,
came up with a pretty good one right here and we beat it to pieces, so.
Yeah, so,
Same thing with his.
so what do you everybody think about that? Jay? what do
One
we-
more thing you should add to your thing is, do you believe you should express an opinion to the city council about following the zoning code or following code on this?
I definitely, yes, but
I mean, but not through me. I mean, what we have when it plays out at the city council, and you've all come and seen that, is that we can say, this is what the planning commission thinks, or Councilman Wance says the planning commission this. But if you all say, I've articulated the argument, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You all have never done that. If you believe that, it needs to be said so that they hear it from you all, if that makes any sense.
Does.
Would you like that shared with the council, members of the commission?
Jim?
I don't care, because I think they have it the way they want it now.
Ollie?
I don't care.
Good.
yeah, you gotta tell him.
Yeah, and I definitely do. George?
Well, as I was thinking about it, I thought that the only way we could get around this is let the town go ahead and put the sign up and say that it's a town endeavor out of our hands. Just like our attorney said.
Speaking for that portion of it, the city, it was never the intention of the city to do any more than replace the sign, the ability to put a message out that's currently there.
But didn't the city know we had an ordinance to cover this?
Well, guess we just didn't think about that one.
Departments that don't talk to each other.
Okay? So that, you'll take that back to city council?
If the planning commission would like to, it'll be said, whether it's representing the commission or myself, it'll be said one way or another.
Well, I think you got the consensus here of everyone one in that
To make
direction.
that clear. Thank you.
Okay, what about the other thing? Bringing something back next month, the 4 different items or more? If you have any thoughts and want to email Jim or something, feel free to do that. Jim, I'm speaking out of turn here maybe, but let's try to move this or wipe it out.
Okay.
All right? So is there anything else? What's next on the agenda? I hope that's it.
That's it.
That's it. All right. Does anyone else have anything for the commission?
No.
Anybody from the floor? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
When's the next meeting?
August 29th?
All right.
I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor of the motion to adjourn, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thought this was getting as close as we could,
That's the way I feel.
Thank you.
but
Thank you, sir. Have a great night.
Do what they want to do anyway. so
Yes,
I
they
think
are. We've already done it.
For electronic signs, yeah, I think they're going to be wanted. We need to be ahead of the curve and get them to be allowed in some way, shape, or form.